If you've been playing airsoft for a while, you'll know exactly what pistol this is. This is the MK23 non-blowback pistol, originally made by Tokyo Marui, and now copies of it by ASG and STTI exist. It's famous for being deathly quiet, extremely accurate, with great range, and the clones come at a shockingly good price. It's a pistol with great success and something I've always liked, and I like that it's different from regular pistols and shines in a very unique way. One thing I did notice with it was that there was a lack of nozzle springs available for the MK23, so I went ahead and made my own. So here they are, my nozzle springs. We have the bottom nozzle spring, as I like to call it, and the top nozzle spring. Now, when I made these and designed them to work with TM MK23s and their clones, I noticed that there wasn't actually a lot of videos of them being installed. So today I'm going to show you how to install our springs and even any other type of nozzle spring you wanted to put in your MK23. And if you're interested in picking these up, there is a link down in the description where you can find them. So first, let's begin with disassembly. You want to take out the magazine of your MK23. And so next you want to take out your slide stop. And to do that, you will want to make sure that your slide itself is cocked so that it lines up with a small notch on the inside of your slide stop and this notch inside the slide itself. And then you'll also want to simultaneously push down on this little bump here, and that will allow the slide stop to come out. It might require a pin or a punch to push out. Once you have taken that out, just put it to one side. We will be needing it later. And so next you want to remove the slide from the frame, and you simply just slide it forwards a little bit and lift it upwards, like so. And we can put the frame to one side for now, we won't be needing it. And now that we have your slide, what we're going to want to do is remove the hop-up chamber, the recoil spring system, and the outer barrel. It's all one piece. The best way to do it, I would recommend, is by pulling back on this spring so it's not pressing against the front of the slide, and just pushing it forwards and then trying to retract it back at a sort of upwards angle. So I'll show you that now. There we go. And so we have that here, and we can put that to one side for now. And so now we have your slide with, I guess, the blowback unit, even though this is a non-blowback unit. To take this out, it's very simple. It's toolless. You just need to grab it and gently lift it upwards. It'll take a small, minute amount of force, but other than that, it should slide up pretty easily. Something to note, if you're a Tokyo Marui user, your top nozzle spring and the rod that holds it in place, the guide rod, might come out. Just something to be wary of. If you're a ASG or STTI user, this will be glued in, and we'll touch on that in just a second. And now we can put the slide to one side. And so here we have our MK23 non-blowback unit. We can see the bottom nozzle spring here and the top nozzle spring here. They are both my own, but it actually helps on camera to show where they belong. So we can uninstall them and then reinstall the new nozzle spring. So what we'll want to do here is, if you're a TM user, this will just simply plop out. It is a top nozzle spring, as well as the guide rod it comes with. This is made out of metal, regardless of if you have a TM or a clone. And that's the top nozzle spring. We'll put them to one side for now. Something I will mention, if you are using a clone of the MK23, like the STTI or ASG, and you're taking this apart for the first time, this guide rod will actually be glued in at the front here. It'll be glued in just at the top here, and it will look like it won't budge. And what you'll have to do is you'll have to grab a sort of razor blade and gently sort of scratch away at it until it is all gone and you can remove that rod. This is a bit scary and a bit daunting if you don't really know what you're doing, but once you know that, and you know that this rod is made of metal and not plastic, it is a lot less scary. The one thing I will say to be careful of is that the channel that this guide rod sits in is made of plastic, so just be careful pulling it from that direction. You could snap something, so just carefully chisel away at the plastic and and the glue here, and you'll be fine. And next we'll want to take out the actual nozzle itself, as well as the bottom nozzle spring that comes with it. Now to do this, what you actually have to do is pry apart these two pieces of plastic to allow this nozzle to come out. It's actually held in by 4 posts, one here, one on the inside here, and another on the inside here. And it can be a bit scary. This is very frail plastic, so you do need to be careful, but it does bend. So I'll just show you that now. Oh, there we go, flying out of there. And so here we have our bottom nozzle spring and our nozzle, and they'll usually look like this on your first uninstallation, and you can simply just remove them from each other. It's just as simple as that. Slowly move on back to our assembly. So we'll just move on to the last piece here. This is what you should be left with. It's just the sliding chassis that would hold the nozzle and then the main blowback unit itself. So now we can move on to assembly. So what I would recommend you do is grab your bottom nozzle spring, which is this sort of goldy pine cone shape, and you want to get the coiled end here and place it into a small hole in the rear of this sliding chassis. Here is the hole itself. There's actually 2 above each other. One is for the guide rod of the upper spring, so we'll just use this bottom one for now. You can just see it there. And so you just slot that in there. And then in reverse, what we want to do is insert this nozzle so that this post here goes through the top of this spring, and then the posts on each side of the nozzle go back into the holes on the sides, and this will require you to also bend the tabs yet again. So let's just try that now. And there we have it. They're all in one piece together now, not falling out anywhere, and we can actually compress it like so. All happy, very good, bottom one successfully installed. And so now we can move onto the top of the unit here. And so what I recommend you do is you grab your top nozzle spring and the guide rod, and you just slot them over each other like so, when it allows me. There we go. And you just want a little bit of this guide rod poking out, and this wants to go in the hole of the top of the sliding chassis. Let me point that out to you now. Just in here, sliding back and forth, and we just put that guide rod in there. This spring will then can then be pushed down. We can drag it down with like a fingernail or maybe a sharp knife, and just get it into position like so. Now what I like to do is I like to hold it down here because it is known to spring out like so. So we just want to push it in, and once that's in place, you just hold it down like so, and we can go back and grab our slide. And so this is old toolless, but it does require some fidgety trial and error. What I like to do is angle the BBU rearwards like that, so that the top of the slide pushes down on this spring here and keeps it in place, and then slide in the rear into the top of the slide. There is usually a satisfying click when you get this right. As I've said before, this is fiddly, and it will take a few attempts for you to get it right. So the reason why the clone companies did glue it in place, because it's just much easier to play about with. All in place, made a satisfying little snap. And the easiest way to tell if this is properly in place is if you look through the top of the breech, you'll see that there is no gap here. If it's seated incorrectly, you'll actually see the top nozzle spring poking out, but it should remain totally flush. So next we can get our hop-up unit for the Mark 23 with the outer barrel. And the way I like to install this is just by pulling back on this recoil spring, sliding it in like so, getting the guide rod through the front of the slide, and then letting the spring go. The top of this hop chamber is also sort of has some spring tension, so it might help to just push that down whilst you do all of this. And just like that, the upper is totally assembled, all in one secure single piece. And so now we can move back on to fitting it to our lower. And so we have our lower and upper here, and these mesh on in a sort of awkward fashion. You sort of just want to angle it just slightly from the front here, slide it on top until it slams into the correct position. And then once it's in a similar position to this, you just slide it back. And so we'll also want to do what we did with our slide release earlier, where we cock the slide appropriately backwards, we push the pin through, and we get it to match with the notch in the slide, and just push it all the way through. And then that should be it. Something to also note, some people forget this, if the slide catch is in the upwards position, it's a safety and it becomes locked, and it needs to be switched down for the trigger to work. I've made this mistake myself and assumed something was wrong, but really this just needed switching down. We all make those mistakes. And with the mag in, all feeding and working as intended. So there you have it, a nice simple quick guide on how to change the nozzle springs in your Mark 23. If you want to see more Mark 23 breakdown content and how to disassemble, please let me know in the comments below. We also plan on making a hammer spring for the Mark 23, so there will be a video of that coming soon. I hope this video was useful. If it was, please leave a comment and let me know. I love to see people who are happy with the content I make. And if you want to see more of this stuff, please hit subscribe and check out our other content. We actually have lots of sort of helpful, educational and funny content that might help you. And there's plenty more to come in the future. As for now, enjoy your freshly feeding Mark 23, and a link to these nozzle springs is in the description below.